welcome to Victory Talk Radio here on Victory Radio. And that was the old theme to Monday Night Football, and I'm playing that because tonight, up first on our show, is a very special guest. I am honored today to have one of the great quarterbacks in NFL history, the MVP of Super Bowl VI, and a fine gentleman whom I have admired since my youth, Roger Staubach. Welcome to the show, sir.
Well, it's good to be on your show, John.
Well, you know, we're approaching Super Bowl 50, which is hard to believe it's actually going to be we're that far gone in the Super Bowls. And I read an excellent article recently that made the case that the 1971 Dallas Cowboys deserve to be ranked up there near the top. Tell us a little bit about that season and what led to the victory in the Super Bowl, because if I remember correctly, at the midpoint, y'all were kind of struggling at some points.
Yeah, and 71 it was my third year with the Cowboys, and we started out the year, Craig Morton was the starting quarterback. When I left the Navy in 1969, Don Meredith retired that year, and he was still a young quarterback, so at least it gave me a chance to play behind Craig Morton for 2 years, and we had a good team, but we lost some tough games in 69 and 70, and lost to Baltimore in the Super Bowl in 70. And so the 71 season, Coach Landry had Craig and I were battling back and forth and actually alternating games. And we ended up in the middle of the year 4-3. And the quarterback position is one that Coach Landry was a fantastic coach, but sometimes out on that field, he was an engineer who had us well prepared. Mm-hmm. But on the field, there was emotion and leadership and things that had to take place. And So the team was looking at, we had two quarterbacks, so it was really kind of a divided team. Craig was a real fine guy and a good quarterback, and we were both going back and forth. And after we just lost to Chicago Bears, and then I got a chance, which was we were at a charity party. Our team was having a charity party on a Monday night, and Ray Renfro came in and told me that I was going to be the starting quarterback, and I just went crazy. I was I was really excited because I knew that when I got a chance to start, at least I could complete the season. And again, if Craig would have started, I think we still would have turned things around. But we really got things turned around. We won 10 in a row, and then we beat Miami in the Super Bowl. So it was a great season, and I felt like I was kind of quarterbacking Don Meredith's team too, because Don was. Back in the 60s, he built Dallas to a winning team with Lilly and Renfro and Leroy Jordan. And so the thrill of my life was to be the quarterback in the locker room of that 71 Super Bowl team.
And that was just the offense just dominated that game, particularly in the second half. I think y'all had over 200 yards rushing in that game.
Yeah, our running game was great. Dwayne Thomas had about 95 yards, and Calvin Hill and Walt Garrison. Actually, Dwayne was a heck of a football player, and he, when he's on the field for that season, he played tremendous, hard, tough football. But off the field, he really got into something was bothering him, and he really didn't want to talk to anybody. When we got to the Super Bowl, he didn't really want to talk to the press, and so I guess because he didn't talk to the press, they gave me the MVP award. So he was a great player, and but it was a controversial situation. But when he was on the field, he performed, and he had a great Super Bowl. And our defense played well. We had probably the most perfect game in the 11 years I was with the Cowboys was that 71 Super Bowl. We just didn't do anything wrong on offense or defense, and it was a great win.
Yeah, and the famous play where Bob Lilly chased Bob Greasy down for like a 25 or 30-yard loss. That was incredible.
Yeah, we had a really an excellent game plan. I had a lot of audibles in that game because of they had Wanakani and Matheson. They had that 3-4 defense, which was kind of new at that time. And we just had a great game plan, and the running game was strong as can be. But on defense, they won the next year. They won undefeated, and they won 2 Super Bowls in a row after that. And had Vodka, Greasy, and a lot of great players. But also we had Cornell Green chase Paul Warfield all over the field, played him man to man. So you're right. Our defense played great. Our offense, it was just one of those games where, thankfully, it was a Super Bowl where we just didn't make any mistakes. And just being in the locker room, Walt Garrison, they asked him, said, "Walt, did you ever see Coach Landry smile?" And he said, "No, but I've only been here 9 years." And, so Walt was the one who was helping carry Coach Landry off the field, and he was smiling like crazy. It was it just was a lot of pressure taken off of a coach that had built a team from an expansion team to a world championship.
Well, if you think about it, Cowboys have been through some heartbreaking losses the years before that. If those two championship games in the 60s had worked out a little bit differently, we may be talking about the Landry Trophy instead of the Lombardi Trophy.
Yeah, I'm gonna be at a breakfast on Saturday morning. It's the Bart Starr breakfast at the Super Bowl, and I was in the Navy when Bart was playing Kansas City, and I think they maybe played Oakland in those Super Bowls, and they had beaten Dallas in both big games to get there. And I'd just gotten back from overseas. I watched the Ice Bowl that first year. Dallas lost to Green Bay, and then they lost 2 years in a row to Green Bay in the championship. So those were big years for the Cowboys, and that's why we were kind of next year's champions when we went into that 71 season. We really had a good team, but we lost some tough games at the end of the year, and the Packers were part of that. And of course, I think the world of Bart Starr. I knew if I ever played again, I'd play for Dallas. So I was pulling for the Cowboys during those times I was in the Navy.
Well, another famous game, and we've just passed the 40th anniversary of the Hail Mary game. I remember watching that game like it was yesterday. Our whole family was glued to the television set, as we always were when the Cowboys were playing. And it's just I can still remember the feeling, the elation we got at the end of that game. So tell us a little bit about the end of that game, and a lot of people have forgotten, y'all had to convert a 4th and, I believe, 16 even before the Hail Mary play.
Yeah, you've been watching some film, John. Yeah, it was 4th and 17, and we Drew Pearson it was kind of a post corner and just caught the ball and got knocked out of bounds, and it was without, obviously we don't complete that, game's over. So that was a big play. The 75 season, we were like a whole new team. A lot of the former Cowboy players that played in the 60s and in the 70s, a lot of them retired, and so in 75 we had a great draft, though. We got Randy White and Thomas Henderson and Pat Donovan, and anyway, a whole group of new players, and it was just, so we were a team, that was not expected to do a whole lot, actually, and we ended up being a wild card team. We got to the playoffs, and we're playing the Vikings in Minnesota, and we were big underdogs, but we hung in there. That was the good part. We kind of played tough the whole game, but we got behind 14-10, and Drew caught the 4th and 17, and then we just didn't have much time left. And basically, the play that was going to go to Drew all the way, and I just told everybody, called the play, but said, "Hey, I'm going to throw to Drew." And Drew was just a great player, great athlete. He had great hands, and he played a lot of basketball, so he really had good hands, and he was a tough player, and he made a little inside move on Nate Wright and went by him, and I looked off Paul Krause. I'd at least pump to the left to have the weak safety at least not try to get over there too fast, and so really it was 1-on-1 pretty much on Nate Wright, and of course, Nate and Drew collided to some degree and slipped, and if you're a Viking fan, you still accuse Drew of pushing off, but you see the film time and again, and there's not any obvious push off or anything, but anyway, they kind of hit, and Drew caught it on his hip, the pass when I pumped, and then I threw back. It wasn't sure a perfect pass, except that the way it turned out it was, but he caught it on his hip. And it's just a great play, and he made the catch and went in the end zone, and we won 17-14. And after the game, I guess it was an AP writer picked it up. I was just talking to the press, and they said, "What were you thinking?" I said, "I closed my eyes and said a Hail Mary," and the term hadn't been used before. And I'm a Catholic kid from Cincinnati, so the AP writer picked up on that, and it was a slow process, but it began that after that game of the term Hail Mary pass wins game got some publicity.
Right. Now, I remember when we were watching it, it was kind of hard to tell at first what exactly had happened. Like you said, he caught on his hip, and he kind of drew nonchalantly, walked into the end zone, and we're like, well, did he catch the ball or not? And then, of course, the touchdown, we all jumped up out of our seats. When did you know that it was a touchdown?
Well, I got hit just as I threw it, and when I pumped to the left and then I threw, it was a little bit underthrown because I was, somebody was almost in my face. I was in the shotgun, so I got knocked down, and when I looked up, I saw it looked like a flag that was on the field, and it was really, I guess, a few oranges were thrown out there, and the reason it was explained later on that the Super Bowl was going to be in the Orange Bowl that year, so a lot of the Viking fans had oranges in their hands, and so they threw that on the field, and then also someone threw a whiskey bottle and hit the referee right in the head.
Right.
And so he was kneeling on the field with his head bleeding. It was an eerie feeling. The Vikings they're great fans, and they really expected that was going to be their year. And Fran Tarkenton was fantastic, a great quarterback, and they had everything going for them that year. That Carl Eller and Bobby Bell, they just had a great team, and we overachieved a little bit that whole season. And obviously the Hail Mary pass allowed us to actually get into a Super Bowl that year. It was a big year for us because we were it was like a new era for our team, and so we were in 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. And it was because of that Hail Mary pass, I think, got us going. We lost to the Steelers that year, 21-17. We beat the Rams the next week, but then we lost to the Steelers in the Super Bowl. And then 2 years later, we beat the Broncos. Then we lost to the Steelers 35-31. So those the Steelers were a fantastic team in the 70s and made our life a little miserable. But we played them twice and played them tough and lost 2 really tough games in the Super Bowl. But in between, we beat the Broncos.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a minute ago the shotgun formation. I was going to ask you about that because you were one of the first teams to utilize a shotgun formation. And at the time, if I remember correctly, you guys Landry was ridiculed for using it or criticized, and yet now today, everyone uses the shotgun. Do you feel vindicated?
Yeah. Coach Landry was really, he was an engineer, and he had goals outstanding, reasonable, believable, achievable, measured, and so we basically he looked at statistics and said, hey, when we're at third down and 3+, we throw the ball 95% of the time, or 97, or so why not just so that spring he called me out to the practice field, and he and Mike Dick were out there. Mike had a lot to do with it also. And they were out there and saying, we might as well, we know we're going to throw the ball. You're going to have a better look downfield. So how do you feel? And then we measured the distance of it became about 5 yards because you didn't want the center be looking like a punt, looking underneath to snap it because he had to block, and so you wanted it where he wouldn't look. And he just snapped the ball, so I'd be close enough that hopefully we had a few bobbles, but most of the time the center was our centers did a great job snapping it, and it gave me a better look. I was able to see downfield. We did run some draws and screens, but we only use it on third down in the 2-minute period. And yes, everybody kind of said, "What are they doing?" But it turned out that other teams had to worry about it. They had to practice against it, and I was a running kind of quarterback, so it helped me when I did run on third down. I could see the field better. So it was a creative move by Coach Landry, and he did a lot of creativity. We started using the slot receivers a couple years the next year, things that they do today. We did the things they're doing today back in the 70s. So,
right.
Coach Landry was a heck of a coach.
Definitely, and not only on offense but defense as well. Because I think wasn't he the defensive coach for the New York Giants in the 50s?
Yeah, he was there with Lombardi and with the Giants, and then came to the Cowboys, and a defensive coach, and we had the motions and we had our linemen stand up, and everybody said, "Why are you doing that?" It's, well, the defense kind of looked at the formations to try to determine maybe what the play would be based on what they saw on film. So when these linemen popped up and down, it was harder for them to see into the backfield, and we were shifting our guys in the backfield, and we were also putting our receivers on. Especially you could have one in motion, and back then they would play you real tight. The defensive backs could be right up on top of the receivers and just hit them and bump them all over the field until the ball was in the air. So with our receiver Drew Pearson in motion, it gave him a better ability to get off the line of scrimmage. And of course now you see motions and you see everything, but we had almost all of that back then, and it was Coach Landry's being an old defensive coach. He wanted to put an offense that confused the defense, and so that's why that's why we were pretty creative on offense. Tough questions. I hope they're not too long of answers, Sean, but I have to. Those are good memories. The creativity that Coach Landry had as a coach was fantastic.
Yeah. Oh no, you're fine. Yeah, I love you talking about it like this. Yeah, it's and like I said, I thought they were unique too. You would go into your stance and raise up and then back down. I mean, nobody else was doing that. And I mean, it was just so innovative at the time. And like you said, a lot of people are using that today. So, well, you played in 4 Super Bowls, or started 4 Super Bowls. What are some moments that stand out the most to you from those games?
The first win was, it's special because, no one could say, or Coach Landry can never be accused that you can't win the big game. And as a player today, well, you had a great year, but did you win the big game? And so winning that first Super Bowl really made a big difference. And losing to the Steelers, we were that wild card team, and they were a great team. They put together a real special period there where they had a great defense and they had a great offense. They had Bradshaw. Bradshaw was really a fantastic quarterback. People don't realize the big plays that he made and the things that he did. He had Swan, Stallworth, and Franco, and so they were good on both sides of the ball. But they had that leader on offense in Bradshaw, and then they also had Jack Lambert over there on defense. So we just having to pick a tough team in Super Bowl. That was Super Bowl 10. We were winning all the way to the fourth quarter, and we made some mistakes. We had a hard time running the ball against them. Our run, that was before we got Dorsett, and it was after our other running backs had left, Calvin Hill, Dwayne Thomas, and Walt. We threw the ball decently against them, but I threw a couple of interceptions, and we made a few mistakes. So it was a tough loss. It was 21-17, and when we played the Broncos, we had a Tony Hill to our team and also a Tony Dorsett, so we were really a better team in '77, and then we were that good team that played the Steelers and lost 35-31 in a very tough game in Super Bowl 13. So I've got some great memories of Super Bowls, and a few tough losses. I guess that keeps you humble, when if you a kid. I think I said something to Bradshaw one time. I was kidding him. I said, Barry, I was only 2-2 in Super Bowls, and you were 4-0, and that's why I'm more humble than you. Or I said something to kid him because I personally like Bradshaw a lot. He's a fun guy, and he was a great player.
I read somewhere, this was years ago, it might have been in the book he wrote, and he paid you a great compliment. He said that whenever he was playing against the Dallas Cowboys, he would stand on the sidelines and watch you operate the offense.
I kind of did the same. He was something special in the '70s, and I had some good years in the '70s. So we both we got to know each other when we both retired in the '80s. We got together a few times. So we had tough losses to the Steelers, but I sure admire Bradshaw.
Well, I'll admit I like Terry Bradshaw now. I didn't like him at the time because he was the enemy quarterback.
Yeah, so. I wasn't crazy about him then either.
And just in case the fans have forgotten, in I believe it was Super Bowl 13, the referee got in the way, I believe, of Cliff Harris about to make a tackle on Franco Harris and allowed him to run for a touchdown. So there's some controversy there.
Yeah, there's a number of plays in that game that's what happens when you have two really good teams playing each other, that something's going to happen to affect the other team, and I think we were affected more on plays that we didn't make, and they did. So we were both. I mean, we were definitely the two best teams in the league at that time. We both had great records going into the Super Bowl, and but we both had good offenses and defenses. So it was it was a tough loss, and losing 35-31.
Right.
The Steelers really became the team of the 70s, and we had such a great period in the 70s. We never had a losing season, and we were in playoffs every year but one.
Right.
But we had to play second hand to the Steelers because they beat us in that, especially in Super Bowl 13. They beat us 35-31. That kind of defined that was the first team to win 3 Super Bowls.
And y'all were making a furious comeback at that point. A minute and a half, I think y'all would have pulled that game out.
Yeah, there was a number of times, right before the half, too. Things happened there that changed. There's a lot of plays in that game that would have made a difference. But that's what happens when you have two good teams, and they got the best of us.
Now, who, in your opinion, who was the toughest defense you ever played against?
I think the Steelers would go down as arguably the best team that's ever played in the NFL. They'd be right up there with, and their defense would be right at the top of the list. I mean, they had it all. I mean, they had Lambert, who was a wild man over there, but he was you'd sure want him on your team, and had Mean Joe and White, L.C. Greenwood, Ernie Holmes on defense, and Lambert, and Andy Russell was great, Jack Ham, Blunt in the secondary, Edwards. I mean, they just had they didn't have any weakness.
And
I hate to talk so much about the Steelers, but you got to give them credit because they were good. They were a heck of a team.
Yes, they were. Yeah, I think, like you said, I think the Steelers and the Cowboys were the top team of the 70s. Although, it's interesting. The Dolphins in the early 70s were pretty good with their Super Bowl run, and they may have been better had the WFL not depleted them of half their players in 73 or 74. But they had a pretty good run there too.
Yeah, if you look at the Cowboys were definitely. I think we probably won more games, and I mean, you look at all games. We were in 5 Super Bowls, and I really started 8 years for the Cowboys, and 50% of the time we were in a Super Bowl. So I sure can't complain about
that's for sure.
The opportunity to be on really a great team. So yeah, it would be us, and the Miami, and would be right there. Of course, along with the Steelers, as far as the teams that really were the most effective in the 70s. The Dolphins would have to be up there too.
Now, when you look at the current NFL, which quarterbacks do you find exciting to watch?
Well, I enjoy. There's really great quarterbacks. It's I like our quarterback here in Dallas, Tony Romo. Watch him all the time. Aaron Rodgers, of course, Brady and Manning are been icons, I guess, for a number of years, and then you start watching the Russell Wilsons of the world. The NFL, I think the quarterback position's always been really important. It's from a leadership position and from making things happen. But it's even, I think, even more important today with the change in the rules, and the passing game is you throw the ball more, and there's you can't hit the receivers past 5 yards. So someone's going to get open, and that's why you got to put pressure, get to the quarterback. And so that's where, like last week when Brady was trying to deal with Denver, they were trying to take away any time that he had in the pocket, and so he had to get rid of the ball a lot quicker. And so quarterbacks are under a lot more pressure, but they also have an opportunity to get people open a little bit more downfield. So that's why they throw more, and they really do the short passes and the check off passes, and because your linebackers are helping downfield and they're not on top of you. So there's a lot of little short passes that they're like, it's like part of the running game almost. So the quarterbacks really have I think even a bigger responsibility than even in the old days.
Got a lot of, and you still see a lot of running quarterbacks today, like Cam Newton, and
I shouldn't forget that when I had all those quarterbacks, I think Cam Newton is. First of all, I think he's one of the best athletes I've seen as a quarterback. I mean, the guy is he's big and strong, and he's really grown as from a rookie quarterback. He has become a very great leader on that football team too. I think he started as a rookie. At least it's nice to maybe have a chance to look around for a few games before you get in there. But Cam, from day one, has just built up a fantastic reputation as a leader on that team. And they only lost one game this year. And physically, he's outstanding. He can run, he can throw, and so. Yeah. I guess I'm assuming he should be the MVP of the league this year.
One thing I noticed when I watch him play too, and I know football's a game, you want to win, but he looks like he's having fun out there, and that to me just means just shows in his style of play.
Yeah, I mean it's the most important thing that you have to do as a quarterback is have your team transfer your personal confidence to your teammates, and he does that. So no matter he does things a little differently, but he's a winner, and he's got his teammates love him and believe in him, and you can't do it without them. So I don't know him, but I sure like the way he plays. I think he plays to win.
And Aaron Rodgers, have you trained him on how to do the Hail Mary, because he seemed to be getting pretty darn good at it?
Yeah, I think he had another father in there too. Those 70 yards. That was more the first one. The second one was what was that 50 or 60 yards or something.
Yeah,
it's a shame. They never even got the ball back after he had the second Hail Mary in that game. I'm still, the NFL is. Should if they go into overtime, you should. The one time field goal could win the game, and then now if you kick the field goal, the other team gets the ball.
Right.
But if you score a touchdown, they don't get the ball, and I don't think that. I think you need to get the ball back. Period. Right. You get into overtime, and I think college does a better job at doing it than the NFL.
Yeah, college is much more exciting because you can go into 5 or 6 overtimes sometimes.
Well, you get a chance. He threw the Hail Mary pass and never got a chance to, and tied the game, went to overtime, and never got a chance to get on the field again.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not making this decision, so.
Yeah. Well, you've had a very successful career after football. Tell us a little bit about your company, JLL Americas.
Well, I worked in the off season. We had 3 kids who were born in the Navy, so I worked for a real estate firm about 5 months a year for about 8 years, and then I started my own small company before I retired. There's a commercial real estate firm, and we grew over 30 years, and we sold to. We became part of JLL 8 years ago, and I'm executive chairman with JLL, so I'm still in the real estate business. I've been in the real estate business over 40 years now, so it's been obviously a big part of my life as football was.
Right. I think I remember Because I recently watched some of the clips from Super Bowl VI. You mentioned that even back then. I think in your post-game interview, you were getting into real estate. So you have been in it for a while.
Yeah, well, when as I mentioned, I came out of the Navy. My wife and I, we had 3 kids born in the Navy, and they didn't pay quarterbacks quite what they do today. So I had a Bachelor of Science in Engineering from the Naval Academy, which is a BS, and that's about what I was as an engineer, was a BS. So I wanted to get some business experience, and I, fortunately met Mr. Miller, and I worked for the Henry F. Miller Company in the off season. I just worked in the off season. I didn't work at all other than football during the football season. But I spent about 5 months a year for a number of years, and decided I really wanted to be like Mr. Miller and start my own company. So I had a great example in Henry Miller.
Awesome. How has faith played a role in your life?
Well, faith is been in the middle of my life for all my life. And when you get older and you get a little understanding of more about life, you either strengthen your faith or you don't understand your faith. And I've been able to strengthen my faith as I've practiced my Christian faith through the Catholic Church, and so it's been in the middle of my life since I was able to reason how important my faith was. So.
Right. And like I said at the beginning, I've always admired, you've always been a leader on and off the field and set an example. And, when I was growing up, our family watched you and admired what a gentleman you were. And, but also Tom Landry, also, as a Christian, seemed to, just represent themselves well. And so, just thank you for that. And if you look back on your career and your life, what's a couple things you're most proud of?
Well, I was, I guess, be the most proud is that my wife and I, we've married 50 years, and we've got 5 and 15 grandkids and 2 great-grandchildren. So I was an only child, and I'm sure proud of the fact that we've had a great marriage, and we have a lot of kids that keep us busy and grandkids. So that's always been the most important part of my life. And then I think I was able to benefit from being drafted by the Dallas Cowboys and going to the Naval Academy and being able to have an education at the Naval Academy and spend 4 years in the Navy and still play football. I feel very fortunate I was able to do that, and I was lucky to be with the Cowboys in the 70s, and that kid Archie Manning, he was with the Saints in the 70s, and I think they had about 8 coaches, and I had Tom Landry, so I was very, very grateful that I was with the Cowboys instead of the Saints, and then you just kind of take the ups and downs of your life, and you have the difficulties and losing your parents when they were pretty young, and so you don't have all the answers. That's why faith has to be there. If you had all the answers, it'd be nice, but it's not the way it is. And even in Scripture, you can, if you go through the New Testament and underline how many times faith has been essential, and because we don't have all the answers, that's why it kept me going in life. That you just have to take what is dealt and what is dealt to you in your life, and do the best that you can based on what you believe and how strong your faith is. So life is a interesting deal every day as you move through life, and family and faith, they basically keep you going.
Yep, and you think about the disciples and what they went through, and they had a lot of trials and tribulations in their life too. But like Paul said, we press on towards the goal of what's ahead, knowing that eternity waits for us.
And James talks a lot about you show your faith through your work. So if you have a faith, you got a responsibility to do the right things with your faith also. So. Right. Well, John, it's great talking to you.
Great talking to you, too, and thank you so much for being on the show, and this has just been a great honor.
Well, have a great week, and have hope your team wins the Super Bowl.
Well, Dallas isn't in the Super Bowl, so they won't.
Well, I mean, the team you're going to pick.
I'm going for Carolina, I think. I'm hoping. I think Peyton has got something left in him. We'll see, though. Yes, he does. So, well, thank you again, and God bless you, and I'll keep you in my prayers.
Okay, take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.